Hi everyone, in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you how to use the relative, absolute and mixed cell referencing in Excel. We have a data set here of salespersons, their accessories that have been sold and their consumables. Let's get to work. The first thing here is to get the total that's of the accessories and consumables for each person. I click on the cell here and then I do my I click my alt equals to, which is a formula for auto sum. Click my enter, because as you can see it gives me the total for the accessory here and the consumables for the first person. I'm going to auto fill that and then I have the total for each of them. They're all 5 persons. Now I'm going to click on one of the cell and then you will see the formula embedded in it. Okay, from here you see B7 and C7 summed up together to 375. If I click on another cell, you see B9 adding up to C9, and then it gives us the figure. One more, B11 to C11, and then you see the total. Now this is what we refer to as relative cell referencing. Relative cell referencing moves with the formula. So you see the formula moving alongside with the cell referred to, the cell referenced. Okay, that is relative cell referencing. By default, Excel uses relative cell referencing in its calculations. You should know that. Okay, next is to calculate the commission for each of the salesperson. Assigned here is 5% for each of them. So we are going to be multiplying the total by the 5% for each person. Okay, I go here, click this cell and then press my equals to sign. I'm going to click on the for James Green, that the first person, my multiplication sign, and then I multiply with 5% and then press enter. Okay, that gives us 28.75, as you can see there. Okay, I want to do the same thing as I do with the total. I want to auto fill for the rest of them. Okay, wow, and that gives me error signs. What is the problem here? Let's click inside to know what actually is the problem. So let's start with the first one that has error code. Okay, now what is happening here? You see 375 multiplying the text commission. That means not actually multiplying the 5%. Okay, that is obviously going to be wrong. You cannot multiply a number by a text. Okay, I go to the next one. Okay, let me go to the last one. What actually is wrong here again? You see $400 being multiplied by all the signs like railroad tracks. Okay, of course, again, that is going to be wrong, and that is why we don't have the correct answer. Okay, so you can see relative cell referencing playing out here. Just like I told you, by default Excel uses relative referencing. That means that the formula moves together with the cell reference, so you can see movement. Now but here we want something else, and that is why we are going to get into absolute cell referencing. What does absolute cell reference do to a cell? The effect is that it actually fix a cell. It fixes the formula, and then you can it does not move. That is what absolute cell reference does. So now to make a cell fixed, because this 5% we don't want it to move, we just want it to be static. We want all the total figures to multiply the 5%. So we want the 5% to be fixed. We don't want it to move here and there. How do you achieve that in Excel? Is by introducing a dollar sign. A dollar sign, whether you use it, introduce it manually, you input it manually, or you can also use the F4 function, F4 key on your keyboard. Locate the F4 key on your keyboard. That is one of the function keys on your keyboard. We have F1, F2, F3, and F4. Now I'm going to click on that cell now, and then you see E5. That is the E5 referring to this 5%. Now to make it fix, I'm going to click the E5 and then press my F4. See what happens when I press my F4. You see dollar sign appearing before E before 5, meaning that I have locked both the column E and the row 5. I've locked both of them. Okay, that is what is referred to as absolute cell referencing or full cell referencing. Okay, so I press my enter button, and then let me delete all these first, and then I'll come back. Okay, 28.75, I will autofill, and then I have my correct figures. Now to confirm that they are correct, let me click on the cell 18.741. You see what is happening there. You can see that the 375 multiply the 5%. That means the 5% cell where the cell is already fixed now. Okay, click another one, $400 multiplying 5%. Okay, that is also correct. Okay, so that is absolute cell referencing. Now what if our boss tells us, okay, why don't you convert these figures, accessories and consumable into percentage, so that we can have a better picture comparing accessories with consumables sold by each of the salespersons? What do? Okay, so we copy this out. Control copy, and then go to one of the cells there, and then Control V. Okay, so what do I do now? I'm going to delete all these figures. I don't want them. Okay, because I want to get the corresponding percentage. Okay, so what's the first thing to do? I click my equals to sign. Okay, go to accessories, $200. Of course, to calculate that, I have to divide it by 575. That's the total for us to get a percentage. Okay, I press enter. Okay, it's giving me 0. Number one, I don't want the dollar sign. I'm not looking for dollar sign. I want percentage. So I go up here to the ribbon bar, and then click percentage. It gives me the corresponding percentage. Okay, autofill for consumables, and what do I have? Oh, 1304%. Obviously this is wrong. Something is happening now. Okay, let's click what is happening here. We click on 35%. Of course, you can see the 200 over the total here. Now for consumable, what happened? You see 375. Of course, divide is supposed to be divided by the total and not commission. What is playing out here is also relative cell referencing. Again, Excel works with relative cell reference by default, and that is why this is happening. However, we don't want that, so we delete it. Okay, let's try absolute cell referencing since we are acquainted with that. Okay, you could use, like I said, your manually input your dollar sign before 7 and then D to get your dollar to get your absolute cell referencing. However, I use my F4 function button, okay, for quick access. That's the shortcut, and then I press my enter button. Okay, now let me autofill for consumables again. Don't forget we are using absolute cell referencing now. Of course, it seems to be correct here. 35, 65, that adds up to 100. Okay, wow, what do we have here again? I've autofilled, and then I have 39 plus 26. Obviously that will be wrong, because whatever we have for accessories and consumables must sum up to 100 for both of them. Okay, for each person. Okay, so that we can compare logically. 70, 78, something is wrong here. That is where our mixed cell reference comes up. We want, okay, let's check in the cells. What's actually going on here? For David Ohm, what are the figures that the formula picked for David Ohm? 225 over 575. However, it's supposed to be over 375. So what do we want here? What do we want to achieve here? We want this column D to be locked. This column D, we want it locked. Okay, now how do you lock a column? Now to lock a column, let me click in 35 here. Of course, you can see that this absolute cell referencing locking both the row and the column. Now to lock a column, I press my F4 3 times. Okay, that is to lock a row is twice, and then to lock the column is 3 times. Okay, you can see the dollar sign behind the D, and then if I press F4 again, I return back to normal. I'll take that one more time. To lock for absolute referencing, which locks the row and column, I press my F4 once, to lock a row twice, and to lock my column 3 times. Okay, and then don't forget, if you press one more time, you take it back to normal. Okay, so I press my enter. Let me delete all these figures so that I can get my actual figures. Okay, so I go back to here, how to fill for my accessories, and then I drag to consumables. Of course, you can see that the figures for accessories and consumables add up to 100% for each person. Okay, so let's check up whether we are correct. So I click 60%. Okay, you see accessories over total. Of course, that makes sense. It gives us the figure, and then I click 47%. Of course, accessories over total also. That makes sense. Okay, let me try another one. 42%. You see consumables here, 220 over the total. Of course, that is correct. Okay, so that is relative, absolutely, and means cell referencing we've got here. And I believe you've gotten something. So that is the end of this tutorial. And if you've enjoyed and learned something in this video, please kindly like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you, and see you next time.